Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of It Hurts to Hope by Inquisitori on AO3. Chapter 5. One step forward, two steps back. Knock knock. Zelka looks up at the voice and blinks at the broad-shouldered man standing beyond the door. "Aye," he says. An impulse shifts on his feet that clears his throat. Can I come in?" It's a stupid question, in Zelka's opinion, because it's not like it's his house or something. But Impulse is waiting for permission, and it stirs something inside him. So he cautiously nods and watches as Impulse steps into the room. "So," Impulse starts, rocking back on his heels. He looks a little nervous, which makes Zelka nervous, because what is a hulking guy like Impulse afraid of? "We noticed your robes are looking out of shape." He glances down at his garments in surprise. They look more like rags than robes they had been at this point. But he's been doing his best to keep them tidy. Are they mad he's ruined them? They have no reason to, but Zelka still understands little about these hermits. "Sorry," he manages to say. And Impulse's eyes immediately widen in something that might be shock. "What? Oh, no, I don't say that. I mean." He's looking more and more flustered and finally offers a bundle of fabric to Zelka. "One of our players is around your size, so we asked him if he had any spare clothes you could borrow. If you don't like them, one of the more art-savvy hermits could probably sew something." Zelka is standing in front of Impulse now, and he's pretty sure they're both surprised by the sudden movement. Impulse nearly flinches, his eyes flickering between the bed and Zelka, obviously questioning how he moved that fast. Reaching out, Zelka takes the bundle from Impulse's hands and retreats to the bed, gently lifting each object up and smoothing it out with extreme care on the covers. They're clothes, like Impulse said. Some kind of sweater made of soft wool in a bright shade of scarlet, dark gray pants, and a few pairs of under things and socks. It's not made from the valuable silk that Zelka's robes are woven from, but they somehow mean so much more to him than the tattered fabrics hanging around his bony shoulders. Because as he touches them, uses what little power he has to see them, he can tell these things were made with pride and worn with joy. He looks back at Impulse, who's still hovering uncertainly at the center of the room. "Listen, if you don't like them, like I said, it's no problem. They're perfect." Zelka interrupts, and Impulse straightens, then deflates from relief, letting out a breathy laugh and rubbing a hand along the back of his neck. "Well, I don't know about that. They're pretty worn, and they probably still smell like moss. But hey, if you like them, that's great." Impulse hesitates for a moment longer, then gives Zelka a smile and starts towards the door. "I'll let B-dubs know. I'll give you a bit of change, yeah?" "Wait." Impulse freezes at the door, quickly turning back, but Zelka simply touches his fingers to the sweater with a sad look. "I can't wear it," Zelka says, and Impulse immediately starts to say something. Zelka cuts him off, then spreads one wing and motions to it. "My wings will get stuck inside," he tries to explain. Impulse looks confused for a moment, and Zelka is ready to stand up and show him how his robes have been tied in the back so his wings are free. But the man's expression clears swiftly, and he's practically beaming now. "Oh, yeah. No worries. We just cut holes in the back and sewed up the edges so they won't fray. We weren't sure if you'd, want, buttons or something so the gaps wouldn't be as big. But maybe later you could talk to one of our seamsters and figure it out." Zelka doesn't have anything to say to that, so he simply nods. Impulse nods too, then gives him a smile and turns back to the door. Alright, well, I'll just be outside if you need anything. Then he's gone, and Zelka immediately picks the sweater up and turns it over. Just like Impulse described, there's two large slits in the back that will fit his wings. The edges sewn up with tidy rows of scarlet thread. Zelka is understanding these people less and less. They're giving him free clothes and going out of their way to make sure he likes them? And they spent time tailoring them for his wings? Why on earth would they do that? It makes no sense. But his robes are a mess, so Zelka wastes no time in sliding them off and instead putting on the clothes he's been given. Xuma came in a while back to take the chains off his cuffs so he could move around freely. The cuffs themselves stayed, though, and they're like heavy wristbands on Zelka's hands. And it's easy to maneuver them through the sleeves. The sweater is impossibly soft against his arms, and the pants fit well. And it's just such a contrast from his ripped, soiled robes that he couldn't help but bury his face in the sweater and breathe in the faint, lingering smell of moss and stone. It's nice. It's a mark that someone wore these before him, that someone cared. Impulse comes back a while later to take the robes and leave lunch, but before he does, Zelka rips a sizable chunk from the abandoned clothes and tucks it away under his bed. It won't be missed. And now he has a makeshift bag to collect food in. It's hard to force himself to do it, still trying to recover from the time he spent in the void, with no food and water. But he stows away a part of his meal in the bag, hiding it as far as he can under the bed. He feels a little bad about it, but he knows that even if these hermits don't mean him harm, there will come a point where he'll have to leave, and he wants to be ready for that day. But for now, he's wearing a soft sweater, and he's not hungry, and he's hesitantly counting Impulse as an acquaintance. Definitely not a friend. Mumbo comes back with more cookies, and Zelka firmly telling himself that he's happy about more food, not about seeing Mumbo. He's definitely not happy to see Mumbo. We tried making snickerdoodles this time, Mumbo explains as they sit down on the floor, and he hands over the treats. I'm not entirely sure why they're called that. It's a very ridiculous name, but the cookies are quite good. Sorry about the burnage. The cookies are a bit blackened on the edges, but Zelka doesn't mind. He stuffs the first cookie in his mouth and is about to follow with the second, but pauses, then lowers his hands back to his lap. Yeah, I would advise to only eat one at a time, Mumbo says with a light chuckle, biting into his own snack. Zelka's mind latches onto how a few crumbs from the tree get caught in Mumbo's mustache, but he looks away before he's caught staring. I was talking to Scar, and he said you really liked meeting Jelly, Mumbo says, and Zelka nods cautiously, looking up at Mumbo. Even sitting, he's much taller, and Zelka pushes down the urge to back away. I like cats, Zelka says, and Mumbo's entire face lights up, like Zelka's speaking is the greatest thing that's ever happened, and he might keel over from sheer joy. I do too, he says eagerly, then realizes how loud he was and settles back down apologetically. He continues in a calmer voice. I am slightly allergic to them, but jellies too are adorable to not be around. If I take potions afterwards, I'm usually fine. Allergic? Zelka repeats. Mumbo pauses, and something sparks in his eyes, a flash of emotion that's quick that's too quick for Zelquid to catch. He leans forward like he's about to tell a story. Allergies are a condition that some players are born with, Mumbo starts, finishing his cookie and brushing crumbs off his sleeves. It's not a bug or defect or anything, it's just how we are. Basically, when we come into contact with certain things, we can start feeling strange. Skin starts to get itchy, we can have trouble breathing, other stuff like that. Thankfully, mine aren't too severe. So for the most part that happens, the most that happens is I get a bit sniffly. So, cats make you sick? Zelquid attempts to summarize, and Mumbo nods happily, like he's managed to teach him how to wire redstone. Basically, yes. But, like I said, it's nothing too bad. If you can believe it, I have an allergy for oranges, too. I once bought a tree sapling from Star that I thought was a lemon tree. Imagine my surprise when they grew oranges. Zelquid nods to show that he's listening, but in reality, he's turning over the new information in his head. Mumbo said it wasn't a bug, but he wonders if it's something similar. Is it something that can be found in the player's code and taken out? A watcher could probably do that. Zelquid could probably do that if he had the energy to. He could delve into Mumbo's code and find the hiccup where it went wrong, the snag in the system that makes him allergic to cats and oranges. He could tweak it a little, fix it, change it. He suddenly realizes what he's considering and immediately shuts down the train of thought, stopping it so quickly it sends him reeling and he almost physically jerks back. What was he thinking? Had he really just considered rewriting a player's code? He feels sick, a horrible feeling bubbling in his chest. This was the very reason he left the Watchers in the first place, because they mess with living beings without their permission and change them irreversibly. Zelquid just thought like a Watcher, and that terrifies him more than anything else. He can't become like them. He won't become like them. Something that might come out as a scream starts building up in his chest, but he slams down on it with as much force as he can muster. He can't. He can't. He isn't a Watcher. But he is a Watcher. Because they took him and changed him, and he's not human anymore. He's completely forgotten about Mumbo in his inner panicking, but is violently reminded when the man in question puts a warm hand on his shoulder. Zell, are you okay? Zelquid screams, blinded by fear and panic, and lashes out with a hand as he tries to scramble away. Don't touch me! The man cries out and jerks back, eyes widening in what might be shock, or maybe betrayal. But Zelquid doesn't care because he's trapped in a small room, and there's a stranger here, and he's a Watcher, and he can't see! He's trapped! He's trapped! He's trapped! Mumbo, get out! Someone cries, and Zelquid is pretty sure he recognizes the voice. But he's so beyond recognition as his head whips around, and he sees two people standing by an iron door, a tall man with a mustache clutching his hands to his face. There's red blood dripping out from under the hand. When did that happen? And a bulky man in a black shirt with yellow highlights. Zelquid lets out a noise that might be a shriek, or it might be a challenge and bolts for the door. Close it! Get out! The shorter man yelps, and the door swings shut right before Zelquid slams into it, wings spreading wide in an attempt to slow the impact. The cool metal seeps into his palms and cheek. It only helps to elevate Zelquid's panic, because he's not okay, and he's trapped. It's a locked door, and freedom is on the other side, and he can't get out! Let me out! He screams, clawing at the door. Like if he tries hard enough, he'll simply scratch a hole through the metal and get out. Let me out! He pushes away from the door and darts down the length of the room, eyes narrowing into tunnel vision as he touches every brick and steps on every inch of carpet in an attempt to find a way out. He can't remember where he is, but he knows he needs to get out. The cuffs on his wrist stop him from seeing, and he snores at that impatiently. Break. His magic surges up, replenished slightly, but he can't remember why. Isn't he completely alone without food or shelter or friends? The magic slams to a stop, grating against someone else's code. Zelka collapses to the ground when it hits him, the unfamiliar feel of power that puts a stop to his own. Voidwalker. He barely manages to think and grits his teeth, wings spreading wide around him in the halo of darkness and feathers, because he refuses to be defeated by this Voidwalker, this upstart being that thinks he's more powerful than a Watcher. Zelka is a Watcher, and he will not bow down. He screams and slams his power against the cuffs, code meaning code, and exploding as it's forced back into Zelka's body, into his heart, until it surges forward again like a wave on the beach, battering up against the cliffs of the Voidwalker's magic, desperately trying to bring them down. It hurts like starfire, but Zelka bites his tongue until he tastes his blood, and keeps going. He ignores the part of his brain that is begging him to stop. He ignores the part of his brain that's saying someone calls him Zell. Mumbo Jumbo. Zuma! Help! Impulse SV. SOS. Watcher alert. Mumbo Jumbo. X. Please! The constant buzzing of a communicator pulls Exuma from his sleep, and he raises his head slowly, squinting with bleary eyes at the screen. What? Oh, right. He must fall asleep at the comms again. He groans and drags a hand through his mussed hair, then blinks as yet another ping sounds. You started the word this time, he mutters with a weary grin, and flicks over to the main chat, which is still going off with alerts. The messages just keep scrolling, and his grin melts away when he reads the chat. Good times with Scar. Guys, what's going on? Mumbo Jumbo. Something happened with Zell! Mumbo Jumbo. He's panicking. I think he's trying to break the cuffs. Doc M77. What? Impulse SV. I have no idea what to do. Impulse SV. Where's X? We need him. False Symmetry. He was at his base last time I checked. Xuma feels cold ice freeze his veins, along with a strange, almost eerie calmness. He's terrified for his players, but there's also a stab of satisfaction that refuses to leave. He was right. Zelka is a danger to the server. He's no different from the other Watchers, and Xuma is an idiot and a fool for letting him stay on the Hermitcraft for this long. With calculated efficiency, Xuma grabs his helmet and shoves it on, grabbing a bag and shoving all the tech off his desk and into it before sending off a swift message into chat. Xuma Void. I'm coming. It takes less than 5 minutes for Xuma to get from his base to the room, but it feels like an eternity that he can't waste. The second his feet touch the ground, he's already sprinting down the stairs, not even bothering to stow away his elytra. I need to know everything that's happened, he commands, bursting down the stairwell into the room. Mumbo and Impulse whirl to look at him in surprise, but he ignores them and moves for the table, upending his bag and dumping the contents onto the surface. Silence answers him, and he turns on his hermits with blazing eyes. Talk to me, he snaps, and Mumbo flinches imperceptibly. There's 3 red lines down his cheek, exactly the size and shape of scratches left by fingers, and Exuma feels white-hot rage that he hasn't experienced in a while. Mumbo was talking to Zelka, Impulse says as he digs through his inventory, and Exuma could hug him for taking the initiative. He brought cookies like he did last time. They were just talking, and Mumbo said that at one point Zelka just kind of tuned out. Mumbo put a hand on his shoulder to see if he was okay, and he lashed out. It wasn't his fault. Mumbo murmured, accepting the bottle of healing potion and cloth that Impulse hands him. He reacted on instinct. It was my fault for touching him. And now? Zuma presses, soothing through the pile of tech on the table and plucking up devices, only to throw them away again. He picks one up and types in a few strings of code, then lets it drop and goes to date another one. Man, I don't even know how to explain it. I think you have to see this for yourself. Zuma grabs his comm and heads for the iron door. When he stops in front and looks through the window, his heart practically stops beating for a moment. The Watcher is kneeling in the middle of the room, hands clutching his head and wings spread wide as his full body convulsions shake him with every second. Xuma knows that Impulse and Mumbo only see the physical side of what's happening, but Xuma, as a Voidwalker, can see so much more. He watches the ripples of purple magic that stutter and glitch up Zelka's body, distorting and shimmering around him in an aura that keeps flickering and disappearing, suffocated by Xuma's own code. Hollow eyes seem to blink open and immediately shutter closed around the Watcher's head as he battles the foreign code on the cuffs. A battle he has no way of winning. But he's trying, and he's trying hard. Xuma has no idea how long it's been going on for, but the Watcher looks exhausted, and yet he keeps going. Even though the effort is racking his whole body with spasms. Xuma lifts his comm, opens his admin panels, and begins to work. At least he tries, until there's loud footsteps on the stairs, and Doc bursts through the entrance, making the cramped room even more so. "Oh good, you made it," he says, bionic eye flickering over Xuma and the many panels he has open. His good eye darkens with an emotion X can't make out. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done in the first place," Xuma replies and turns back to his task. "Getting the Watcher off my server." "What?" Mumbo cries, and the potion-soaked cloth he was using to clean his wounds falls to the floor. "X, wait!" "I'm done waiting," Xuma snarls, leaving his panels to turn on his player. "He hurt you, Mumbo. He's trying to break out of the cuffs. He's a danger, and I am not letting him stay on my server for a second longer." He turns back to his panels, but a heavy hand lands on his shoulder. Xuma glares at Doc, who meets his gaze with a much calmer expression. "I think you should think about this for a moment," Doc says, and Xuma lets out a loud noise of frustration, pulling his arm from Doc's grasp. "I think you should be quiet," he spits back, and reaches for the panels again. Doc's hand stops him once more, and something dark and ugly creeps into Xuma's mind as he stills. "Step away, Doc," he says quietly, and even though Doc can hear the tone of his voice, the tone of an admin and a Voidwalker, he doesn't move. The absolute dumbass doesn't move. "Doc?" "Xuma," he replies in a voice that's too calm and too soft for the situation. "I thought we agreed we weren't killing the Watcher." "I'm not. I'm simply getting him off my server and away from my players. By throwing him into the void. He's a Watcher. He'll be fine. His energy is low. He won't survive." "His energy seems high enough to do that." Xuma jabs an impatient finger at the iron door and a dangerous being behind. "Doc, he's a danger and a liability. I won't let him hurt any of you. I can't let him hurt any of you." The memories of people long gone seem to press on his mind and darken his vision, but he pushes them away with as much force as he can. He can't think about the last time he failed. He can't. "You're not X. Look, Mumbo is fine. Impulse is fine. I'm fine. The only person Zelka is hurting right now is himself." "He's lost and confused," Mumbo says quietly, approaching with nervous, twisting hands. "We're basically keeping him prisoner. We also have no idea what he went through before ending up here, X." Mumbo cuts off, hesitant, and then continues before he can stop himself. X? Did you ever think that he might be like us? Did you ever think that he might be like us? The question rings in Exuma's ears, rattling every single thought he's pieced together and sending them shattering to the ground. Because no, he's never thought about that. He's never even stopped to think about the possibility that Zelka is like the hermits. Ever since the beginning, Hermitcraft has been a sanctuary, a place where lost, broken players can take shelter and recover from whatever past sent them running. No questions asked, no explanation needed. It's the longest standing rule, and the only truly unbreakable one that you can never ask another hermit about the story unless they tell you. Xuma's never told his, and he knows that many of his friends are the same. There's a reason False is called the Queen of Heads, Hearts, and Body Parts. Scar and Cub refuse to explain the bluish-gray aura that seems to swirl around them sometimes, even though everyone can recognize the power of Vex. Etho rarely takes off his mask and gloves around others. Tango doesn't talk about the burn scars on his back. Doc hasn't always had a bionic arm and eye. They've all been hurt and broken in some way, and they've found their peace in the end. Or at least Exuma hopes so. He's pretty sure he's never going to let go of his past, but it's fine, because as long as everyone else does, he doesn't care about himself. They all ran from something. Exuma hasn't stopped to wonder what Zelka's running from. He's quiet for a long minute, and the other 3 hermits in the room are watching him with worry and apprehension. Exuma sighs and reaches up to unclasp his helmet and pulls it off. I want at least 2 people in here at all times, he says quietly, running a hand through his hair. I'm staying until he calms down. The cuffs are going to be reinforced. I don't want anyone going in with him until we're sure this won't happen again. If anything at all happens, I want to be immediately notified, no matter what time or what I'm doing. Mumbo, you're going to treat that scratch, and I'm going to check your code and make sure there's no lasting effects. Mumbo opens his mouth like he's about to protest, but Exuma holds up a hand for silence. None of this is up for debate, he says, and closes down his panels one by one, before finally looking back into the room. The Watcher's efforts have finally stopped, and he slumped sideways into the floor, chest barely rising and falling in labored breaths. Sweat drips from his forehead, and his wings are skewed to the side in a way that can't possibly be comfortable. Zuma vaguely notes that he's changed out of his ruined clothes and is now clad in a red sweater and gray pants. Zuma watches in silence as the Watcher's lips twitch, mouthing a string of words that are just barely audible enough to reach the admin. 2 sentences spoken in an ancient galactic dialect that Exuma is lucky enough to know. I'm sorry. Don't send me back. And that is the end of chapter 5.